Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, as usual, the links will be right down below. The videos that I'm going to talk about, the links, everything will be right down below. I'm going to talk about a TikToker, Lilly Gaddis. Okay, she is a white woman who recently got fired from her, I believe it's a healthcare management job. And coincidentally, this healthcare business is immigrant owned and also run by a black woman. And that's important because this is she got fired from her job. And there's a video down below. And she's cooking something. She's a TikTok influencer. She's a white woman. And she's talking, she's got a couple of videos down below. The first one where she's talking, she's cooking something, and she's very upset because she thinks that people call women gold diggers. And she says a couple things in this video. There's a lot of offensive things she says, but one of the things that struck me is she says that she will not date pussies. She hates guys that are pussies. She hates pussies. She wants a guy that if somebody breaks in the house, he'll get a gun and bam, and cap them. She hates pussy. She says this over and over again. And then it gets worse. She goes on to say how all of her friends that are married to, she uses the word that begins with N here. She says they're all married to broke ass and they're married to immigrants fresh off the boat looking for a green card. These aren't my words now for the YouTube algorithms. These are the words of this TikTok influencer who I am talking about. And she got fired from her job. And not only did she get fired from her job, but now she's complaining about it. And she said she did another video after that. She says she did a deep dive after getting all this criticism. You know, she's wearing her American flag, you know, good old Trump supporter. And she did a deep dive and looked deep into her soul. And she couldn't find a care about what she said. You know, she doesn't take back a word of it. Okay. And it just gets more offensive from there. There's other posts. They took down her post, and she says she's complaining about her First Amendment rights. She's crying about her First Amendment rights. Why can't I say these offensive things? All right, let me start at the very beginning here. This is the kind of woman. I'm a single guy. I'm 58. I've never been married. I've dated well over 100 women since I've been dating for almost 45 years. I've gotten well in over 100 fist fights in my life. I'm not bragging, but I'm making a point here. Let me tell you this story. This is a true story. If you've watched my channel, I've told this story before. It's the moment at 10 years old that I felt I became a man. My father was a gun collector. He was a game warden. We lived in the state house. He ran an entire state park. He was the head guy. And we lived in the state house, like a big log cabin in the park. And he collected firearms. And he died when I was 9 years old from brain cancer, leaving me at 9 years old, my sister, 3, and my mother, who was, I think, barely 30 years old at the time. And I learned to shoot the guns. And he told me, he had me shooting a double barrel over and under Antonio Zoli shotgun with double-aught buck in it. He had this in the bedroom, and before he died, he had me shooting this at like 7 years old, and it knocked me on my ass. We were shooting these old picnic tables from the park, and it just destroyed the picnic tables. Bam, And okay, so after he died, when I was 10 years old, it was a Saturday night, and I was sitting on the floor in the living room. My mother was sitting on the couch behind me, at the end of the couch with her legs crossed, sitting on the couch. And my little sister was in bed. It was about 10 o'clock. We were watching The Love Boat on Saturday night, or it was Fantasy Island. And we lived in the middle of nowhere in the state park. And all of a sudden, we started you hear a car pull up in front. There's not neighbors for miles in either direction. There's no streetlights. This is back in the 70s. Okay, so we're out in the middle of the woods. And a car pulls up in front, and we hear all voices yelling, screaming. It's just me, 10 years old, and my sister, and my mother, my little baby sister, and my mother. And I look at my mom, and she's frozen on the couch. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to break in the house. I could hear all these voices, and you hear them. It sounds like they're coming up to the door. And at that moment, I knew that shotgun was in my mother's room. It used to be my parents' room, but after he died, it was my mother's room. And she wasn't moving. And right then, it's like, should I get the gun? Should I go get that 12 gauge? What am I going to, I have to, and I look at my mom and she's like a deer in headlights. She's just, not to say anything bad about her, she's just frozen. And right at that moment, I became a man. I wouldn't wish that on any 10-year-old boy. That changed my life right there and then. And I got up and I started to run to the bedroom, and I heard the car door shut and the car drive away. And I stopped. And my heart is freaking pounding. I can't feel my arms, my adrenaline. I'm shaking. And I got right to the door of the bedroom, and I hear the car doors. I hear them drive away. And that was it. But I had to make that decision. Okay, so I'm not one of these theoretical. And like I said, this is the kind of woman that get insecure guys in trouble. I've seen this my entire life. Guys that are confident, guys that are real men who aren't pussies, will steer clear of this kind of woman. This is the kind of woman that complains, if somebody bumps into her, if some guy was looking at her wrong in a restaurant, aren't you going to do something about that? He's disrespecting me, that kind of thing. I swear to God, I have had friends that are probably still in jail. Their girlfriends who were like this, who they got, then they got, these are the kind of guys that are insecure. So they have to prove that, they see a woman like this, say that she doesn't want, pussies. So they're attracted because they want to prove that they're not a pussy. Guys like me will steer clear. This kind of woman is nothing but trouble. I'm a real man. I don't need to prove I'm a real man. And honestly, I don't want a woman telling me how to be a real man. I don't. I know it's ingrained in me. I don't need some woman telling me, that she doesn't like pussies. That's the kind of woman that is nothing but trouble. She's an instigator. So, like I said, I've dated women, and I remember this one instance. I was driving my girlfriend's car, the last girl I dated, who passed away 3 years ago, Audrey. I was driving her car, and I was in a mall parking lot, and a car pulled up next to me with 3 guys in it, three like 20-year-old guys. And we're talking about what we're going to buy. She's cutting coupons, and the guys get out and they slam their door into her door. They slam the car door. They chip her car. They open the door and they slam her door. And she just looks at me like she's scared. And I don't do it for her. I don't do it for the car. I do it just because it's disrespectful. I jump out of the car. And, the guy starts talking smack to me. I was like, what the F, watch the door. And he's like, you talking to me? He starts talking smack. And I just do what I've done my whole life. I lose it. And I threw the guy up against my car. And I'm slamming him into the car. And his friends are just standing there like we're not moving. And I see Audrey in the car. And she is terrified. And she's almost crying. Because the violence scared her. I mean, women want somebody that protects them. But when they see the man they love turn into somebody they don't recognize, with that anger, it terrified her. And I learned not to do that. I learned to control my temper. Because right now, I still can picture her face. I saw her face in the car as I'm slamming this dude. And she was just looking at me like she didn't, just looking at me terrified, not at the guy, but looking at me terrified, and she told me later, it terrified her that she didn't recognize me. It scared her that I could be that violent, and I would never touch a woman in my life. I never laid a finger on a woman, but seeing that side of me. So that's, so along comes Lilly Gaddis here, who says she doesn't date pussies. Like I said, this woman is nothing. A woman like this is an instigator. She's nothing but trouble. Secure, real men would steer clear of a woman like this. As soon as they hear, a real secure guy hears a woman say something like that, I want a guy who'll do this and do that for me and protect me, and not a pussy. I hate pussies. You hear that and you're a secure, real guy like me, you steer clear of that. You don't, and plus, like I said, it turns me off. I don't want a woman telling me how to be a man. I know how to be a man. It's an unspoken thing. It's something, I don't tell her how to be a woman. I don't say I want a feminine woman. I want her dressed in dresses. I want her to do this and that, So you don't tell me how to be a real man, and we'll get along just fine. Okay, let me talk about this real quick. She talks about how all of her friends are married to broke ass and immigrants. I got to read, and then she's a hypocrite because she goes on to say how she doesn't like rich guys, and she dates broke surfers and hippie dudes. Okay, so what she really doesn't like is the color of their skin. It has nothing to do with being broke or anything, because she admits she dates broke guys, broke white guys. So right there, it pretty much says and it's like she doesn't even see this, and she's complaining, because she feels like this is her First Amendment rights to spew this hatred in this bull, and she's all angry, she got fired for it. Let me say this. There's an adult, I got in trouble for saying this before. There's a website, and it begins with the word chat, and it ends, when you go fishing, you usually use bait, okay? And on that, there's all people from all around the world. And let me tell you this, there is a difference I'm saying why some women prefer to date Spanish or South American guys or black guys. It's because they're bigger. If you look this up, Native American guys, black guys, Spanish guys are bigger. If you look on this site, you can't help noticing the Colombian guys are freaking huge. I mean, like all of them, they're packing. I don't know what it is. I don't know what kind of what's in the water in Colombia, but so I could see it's all about size. It really is. I've said this before. The guys and girls that say that size doesn't matter are lying to themselves. Size matters. The size, that's what makes this world go round, really, is having a big swinging Johnson. It's the truth, man. I would never date this woman, and I consider myself a real man. I would steer clear of her. Lilly Gaddis. The links are down below. Let me know what you think, please. Have a good Wednesday.